right, welcome back to another episode of The Potential Project. I'm your host, Sean Calhoun, and on this week's episode, we are going to be talking about strength, and more importantly, what would feeling stronger allow you to do? Now, I want you to ask yourself, in general, when you think about strength training, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Now, a lot of the women that I work with or talked to in the past, things like bodybuilders come up, heavy barbells, intense workouts. The phrase getting bulky is always in the conversation, and then a lot of times people feel that they get intimidated in the gym. But we have to realize that, strength training is not about becoming a bodybuilder. That would be like saying driving in my car means I'm going to become a race car driver, right? It's all about protecting your body's ability to live the life that you want to as you get older. You see, in my mind, creating habits for health and building more vitality is all about your independence and your freedom to live the way that you would like to without restrictions. So that's why strength and building strength is super important, if not one of the most vital things that you can do to achieve that. Now, you might know this, you might not think this way, but the reality is that strength is way more than about appearance. It's not just the way you look. And don't get me wrong, looking more toned and having, more muscle definition is cool, and it can be a great benefit. But strength training provides so much more than just the muscles on your body or the way you look in clothes, right? It provides you with actual lean muscle mass, which does a ton of other things, right? We're talking about improved metabolism. We're talking about improved bone strength and bone density. We're talking about balance and stability. That's huge, right? We're talking about improved joint function so that when your joints get used, your elbows, your knees, your shoulders, your muscles can take some of the load instead of all of it going into the joint. We're talking about actual mental and physical confidence to know you can perform a certain task and actually doing it. And we're talking about independence. So that's just a short list of things that I wrote down as far as the benefits that you get from strength training. And the list goes on, and I'm telling you, it's like no other thing. Like it's one of the most important things that you can focus on as far as your health journey. And just to remind you, again, it's not just changing how your body looks. The goal is building this body that continues to work for you with whatever your goal and desires are. Now, if you're listening to this and you are a woman over 40, you've been through menopause, this is for you, because strength training becomes way more important during menopause. And in fact, I shouldn't say way more important, because it's always important. And if you can do it prior to going through menopause, you're probably going to be better off anyway. But as we know, as a woman goes through perimenopause and menopause, the hormonal fluctuations that change during those years make it easier to lose muscle and harder to maintain bone density. It's just a natural thing that happens when your estrogen drops. So losing that muscle during those years can affect things like your metabolism, your body's ability to regulate blood sugar, your natural energy, your body's mobility through your joints, your body composition. I know a lot of women that I talk to have experienced more belly fat around the midsection, right? That just wasn't there before. And your ability to recover from injuries and from workouts. So your body's ability to bounce back after a strength training or lift or a run is not the same as it used to be. And this is why doing more cardio or just eating less is not always the answer. And I know we've talked about that in other episodes, but it stands true with strength training and building strength, because when you're doing that to a body that already feels depleted, it's not going to allow you to recover properly. Now, your body just might need a stronger signal to preserve the muscle and build the muscle that you already have. All right, so what does this look like in real life? Because if you've never done resistance training or you've never really worked out before, this might seem very intimidating to you or foreign to you. If you're someone who does exercise, maybe you've dabbled with strength training or have maybe done it for the wrong reasons. And that's what we're going to break down here. And I'll repeat, the strength training that you do inside of the gym is only valuable because of what it allows you to do outside of the gym. we are not exercising and strength training to simply burn calories, or because we had a bad meal, or because we looked at ourselves in the mirror and we didn't like what we saw. Those are all negative intentions when you're stepping foot into the gym. And that could get you so far, right? It might get you in the door on a Monday. That might get you to be a little more consistent, or get you motivated. But overall, if you're beating yourself up mentally and physically every time you're exercising, that becomes a means to an end, and it makes you frustrated and even more disappointed if you're not seeing the results that you want to. Whereas on the flip side, if you're someone who understands the benefit of strength training and what it's doing for your mind, your body, your longevity, and just your clarity, then you will do it on a more consistent basis without needing that really big surge of motivation just to get it done. And you'll be more consistent with it over time. So some of those things that it helps with outside of the gym, I mean, think about it in your regular life, right? Carrying groceries without struggling. Picking up a grandchild if you have grandchildren. Getting up and down off the floor comfortably. Now, this is a little joke between my clients and I, but I'll always say, like, when we're doing exercises, some are on the floor, some are standing, and they'll complain. And I'm saying, you know, the getting up off the floor is half the battle, and it's half the exercise. Because in life, if we can get up and down off the floor easy, we're going to have to do that at some point. It just makes life easier, right? You drop something on the floor, you go down and tie your shoe. These are simple things, but when our mobility starts to go, our decrease in strength starts to happening, I'm not even speaking English right, starts to happen, then you see that as a problem. So getting up and down off the floor is a serious perk to be good at. Think about moving furniture, whether you want to rearrange or you want to clean things or you need to move something from the inside of your house to get out to the trash. We're talking about traveling and carrying your luggage. I know most airlines allow up to a 50-pound bag. Now that's pretty heavy to carry by your side. Granted, most of those things have wheels, but I remember starting with a client years ago, and her main goal, she told me, was to get her carry-on bag up into the overhead compartment without any help. She wants to be independent when she travels. I mean, that's a great goal. You know, it's not just about, oh, I want this number on the scale. It's, hey, I travel for work. When I go on a plane, I want to be able to pop that thing up into the overhead compartment and not even think about it twice and just get to my seat. Love that. Think about gardening, right? You're on your hands and knees. That's a tough position to be in on your back, right? We want to be strong and be able to garden. Maybe you have a hobby of playing pickleball or golf or tennis. It's very important to have strength and mobility to do those things. We're talking about walking confidently without worrying about falling. Now, some of you might think that's silly to even think about, but someone who's elderly, who is just walking, they're not even doing any like sports, has the worry in their head that they may fall. So imagine not worrying about that. If you have the grip strength to grab onto something, if you have the balance and stability to just walk without assistance, that's huge. And just continuing to live your life independently. Now, I think I've kind of beat it over the head on topics and things that improve when your strength improves, but I'm trying to hammer the point home in how important this is and shift your mind away from just the number on the scale and to all of these other things that may not have been prevalent for you or even thought about as to it being a benefit from strength training. Now, you have to ask yourself, right? What would becoming stronger allow you to do more easily? Because I listed off those things and they're all great and they might apply to you, but take a moment, right? Realistically, think of yourself with a stronger, more mobile, more able, pain-free body. And what does your life look like then? What are you able to do? Who are you able to become, right? How are you able to make an impact in the world because of yourself being stronger? Now, in general, when I give health advice or tips on workouts and things like that, I try to make it as simple as possible. And with this is the same thing, because strength training does not have to be complicated. You do not need to work out every day or spend hours and hours in the gym just to get benefits from strength training. And we have to also realize where your starting point is. I use the math analogy a lot. If we had a first grader and they were learning addition and subtraction and the numbers, you wouldn't then say, okay, here's calculus, figure it out, right? Because they have to go through years of learning division and multiplication and then algebra, right? There's steps involved. The same thing goes with building strength, right? You're not going to need to spend 4 hours a day in the gym every day and then be able to get the results, right? It comes from building confidence and taking the small steps to build into a more detailed, more advanced routine, let's say. So a strong starting point for you could be 2 or 3 full body workouts per week. It could be learning a few of the basic movement patterns like squats, deadlifts, presses, raises, right? Those simple things. It could be gradually increasing your resistance. So, if you've worked with me, what we'll do is we start off at lighter weight, we get the foundational movements down, and then we increase the weight as we go because your body is building up the ability to do those movements at a higher weight, right? Another thing you could do is track your progress. Maybe you track your workout that you did on Monday and the next week you're doing once or twice a week and you're tracking the workouts that you're doing. Maybe another step that you could do as a starting point is just giving your body the fuel that it needs, which means getting enough protein, getting a proper sleep schedule going on, and recovering on the days where you're not working out. Those are all great starting points that aren't 5 workouts a week in these elaborate, training programs. You have to start where you're at and build from there. And when you're doing this, there are important movement patterns to practice as foundational things that evolve. And I do this with all my one-on-one clients, and I explain to them that when you're doing these basic movement patterns, they become more complicated over time as you add difficulty. So for example, we have squatting, we have hinging, pushing, pulling, and carrying, right? Those are the basic compound movement patterns that you perform with strength training. Now a squat, you can do assisted, holding onto something with your body weight. That is a pretty elementary version of a squat, although it doesn't undermine you if that's where you're at. But for example, that same squat can be done with a 500-pound bar on your back. It's still a squat, but it's way more complicated and it's way more advanced. So my point is, you just need to master these movement patterns, and as you progress, they will evolve, right? I hear people talk about, we need to mix things up. We need to, have a different workout. We just did squats the other day. Well, guess what? That's not the way your body works. You can't just do different random exercises and think that that's going to allow you to progress. You do squats and then you do them again and then you do them again, right? Like you get so exponentially good at doing the basics that they become and they evolve into something more. So, if this is something new to you, there's a lot of YouTube videos you could watch. If you have a trainer or someone at your gym to give you help, you can start with things like machines, like the cable machines, dumbbells, resistance bands, or even your own body weight. But I suggest starting somewhere. Again, if you want some assistance, you can look up YouTube videos. You can go to a gym, maybe hire a trainer. You can join a group class where there's some type of supervision. But my advice is to just get started. Now, one word that you'll learn if you don't know it already is the term progressive overload. And this is we'll get into that. But essentially what I see a lot of people do is you do the same light workout with light weights forever until eventually it's going to stop challenging your body. There will be no more stimulus on your body to grow and evolve. So progressive overload just simply means gradually asking your body to do a little bit more. Now, that might mean a couple different things. It might mean adding a small amount of weight to the movement that you're doing. So if you're doing squats with 10 pounds, it might ask your body to do a squat with 15 pounds, right? It might also mean performing another rep. If you're doing sets of, let's say 15, or let's call it 10 reps, and then I ask you to do 12 reps, that's progressive overload in a simple sense. It might mean improving your range of motion. If you're doing squats, I keep using this as an example, but it's helpful. If you're doing squats and you can barely get your butt down low, and then all of a sudden you're progressing to lowering your butt below your hips, that is progression, right? Maybe it's using better control and tempo. So all you could do maybe for your squat at first is drop down really fast and try to spring back up, which is not good for your joints. But the progression could be that you take 3 seconds to lower yourself on your squat and 1 second on the way up. So you slowed down your tempo and used better control. Now, those are all ways in which you can progress your strength training, and if done with a trainer or some help, they should know how to program that in for you and then calculate your increases as you go, because you're going to stimulate the muscles in a different way, in a more challenging way, even if you're doing the same movement pattern. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying with those foundational movements. You know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I want to change it up. I don't like doing the same exercises over and over again. Well, if you've been doing squats for 10 reps at 30 pounds for a couple weeks, and all of a sudden I ask you to do 15 reps at 30 pounds, that changes it up for sure. Your body will feel the difference. When you get done that workout, you're going to feel sore, and you're just going to feel the difference in the way your body responds. So you don't need to always constantly chase different movements or chase heavier dumbbells. You just simply need to continue giving your muscles a reason to adapt. And that adaptation comes in many different ways. Now, I want to address this, and we don't have to talk too long about it, but it is the concept of getting bulky. Right? We want to address this because many women avoid lifting weights because they are told or they think that they are going to become too muscular. So they don't pick up weights heavier than 10 pounds. And they just think if they do this, all of a sudden they're going to look very man-like with big shoulders. And it's just simply not true, right? Building a large amount of muscle is extremely difficult and usually requires years and years of highly intentional training and nutrition. Anyone you see who is a bodybuilder or has this physique that is unlike an ordinary person, they spent years and years with a coach, with a proper and scientifically backed progressive overload training session where they went and pushed themselves and gave their 100% effort for every workout. They had a scientifically designed meal plan to where they got to the point where they were probably eating for fuel, not for the enjoyment of it. They were measuring everything out. It was down to an exact measurement of the fuel that they were putting in their body. And they became a science project to see what their body could adapt and do. Now, for most women, that's not the case. You're not just, unless you're training for a competition, you're not just going to randomly do that, right? And in reality, for most women, strength training makes them feel more firm, more capable, more stable with their balance, more athletic, and more confident in their body. Those are typically the outcomes of strength training rather than getting bulky and feeling like you're Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? So there's usually, if we're weighing this out, there's usually a greater risk of avoiding strength training and slowly losing your muscle than there is in becoming that bulky person. So when we look at things on a pro and con level, which you should do with most things in your life, and say, if I do this, what happens if I do it? And what happens if I don't, right? The don't is far more scary than the do. The do is you feel toner, you gain more confidence, and in your worst case scenario, if this is still your belief, you have a little, some broader shoulders than more. Okay, there's your one scenario. The other is a slow metabolism, is decreased mobility and ability. You have potential to gain belly fat. You have decreased bone density, and over time will achieve osteoporosis. Or could, I don't want to say will, I don't want to make any claims on here. But you see what I'm saying? Like the benefits of doing it far outweigh the negative side effect of not. So I just want to leave that where it is. I don't need to talk about this too much, but I just want to greatly urge you to lean into doing it because you will not get bulky. Now, strength training, I've mentioned this a couple times, and building that lean muscle mass is directly correlated with confidence. And getting stronger changes way more than just your muscles, right? There is something super powerful about doing an exercise that once felt impossible, or lifting a weight that used to intimidate you, or being able to do something like take your suitcase and put it in the overhead compartment by yourself. That is huge, right? That confidence that you're getting by lifting the heavier weights, by being more capable, carries into other areas of your life. We have to realize this. It's a domino, it's a stimulus that causes an improvement in all other areas, like your career, your relationships, your willingness to try new things, the way that you literally carry yourself throughout the day. Imagine walking with your head held high, your shoulders back, and just knowing that you're capable of doing the things that you want to do. And the way that you think about aging. Everyone talks about, oh, I'm getting older, I'm getting older. Well, I look at it as, yeah, I mean, a number might change. I've spent more years on this earth, but if I learn more and I take care of my body, I'm just going to continue to feel good, and that should be empowering. And, you know, with the age thing, when you start strength training, it really can help you see aging as this beautiful experience of life rather than this like period of decline and withering away, right? You become more capable and you get more opportunities as you age. So I always like to leave you guys with some type of like actionable step or like thought to take, because me saying this means nothing if it doesn't actually impact you, right? If you don't actually take action on this. So the question that I want you to ask is, or think about is, what is one thing I want to continue doing or be able to do again that becoming stronger would help me accomplish, right? Maybe you used to dance. Maybe you used to work out in the yard and garden. Maybe you used to enjoy going for hikes, whatever it is. What is one thing that you want to continue doing or want to be able to do again that getting stronger helps you to accomplish, right? And that should lead you to want to take action, right? And my challenge for you is to complete 2 simple strength workouts this week. I mean, as simple as it can be. That could be literally doing 20 body weight squats on Tuesday and 20 body weight squats on Thursday if you've never worked out before. That could be pulling up a YouTube video and doing a workout there. That could be getting to the gym twice. But I really want to challenge you to get moving and do some resistance training twice this week. And the goal is not perfection. The goal is to begin showing your body that you can expect more from it and for it to remain strong. And that's huge, because when you build that confidence in your mind and in your body, it can continue. Now, just to reiterate, your workouts are not punishment for what you ate. They're simply not just a way to burn calories. Every strength workout that you do is an investment in your future mobility, your metabolism, your confidence, and your independence as a human. So you're not just training for the body that you want today. You are training for the life that you still want to be living 10, 20, and 30 years from now, right? So just know that what you're doing today, you don't get the benefits for right now. You get the benefits for it down the road when you do it consistently. Now, if you've heard me talk about our community, the Vitality Wellness Collective, we do this, right? We help women make strength training, nutrition, and healthy habits feel simpler and more realistic. So this way, you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. You can learn at your own pace, you can ask questions, and you can build consistency alongside women who are working towards similar goals. So if you're interested in that, we do have a built-out 6-month strength training program within the Vitality Wellness Collective, the community, and it's all built out for you with videos and demonstrations and that. So you have women who are doing it alongside of you to communicate with, to ask questions, and to stay consistent. So I hope in one way, shape, or form this provided you value, and if it did, all that I ask you to do is to take action and potentially share it with a friend who also needs to hear this. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next week. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me on today's episode. I hope you got a ton of value from it. If we're not connected on Instagram yet, let's change that. Hit me up at Sean Calhoun _. That's SEAN Calhoun _. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what you think of the show, or if you got any questions about how to level up your health. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode.